Hi pals, it's me, Artie, they and pronouns only, and my video this week is just kind of a little bit about my thoughts of the recent season of Heartstopper. I was a really big fan of the comics as well as Alice Oseman's other books as well, but I did kind of fall off of reading the graphic novels. I think they're here. Yeah, like I only got to 3 because the third one I found a little bit triggering and a little bit frustrating when it was covering the topic of eating disorders, that I wasn't really sure I wanted to continue reading the comics. And I have definitely had a very like hit and miss 50-50 love-hate of the novels that I've read of Alice Oseman's. The only one I haven't read is Loveless, and that is one that I would like to get around to reading, and also like some of the spin-off novellas for like Nick and Charlie. I haven't read those either. But mainly I'm just going to be talking about the TV show. You can also see some of my Heartstopper posters in the background. Because yeah, I mean, I really like the show. There are lots of things that I enjoy about the show, and it's just always been surrounded by a really bizarre, interesting selection of debates, fandom issues, etc. Also, it's a little bit late in the afternoon, so I've had to put on my like lamps and extra light for lighting in here, so it does look a bit strange and it's getting caught in like my glasses, so in case that's bothering anyone, I have had to put lighting on, which I may have to continue doing through winter unless I'm filming earlier, because it is 3 o'clock and it's just so dark. But anyway, on to my general thoughts and review of season 3 of Heartstopper. First of all, I love the exploration of all of the different characters' plot lines. That's something that wasn't in the original comics. It was very much about Nick and Charlie, and especially as the show has added like a couple of extra characters in replacement for other characters like Imogen and Isaac, they have got kind of like a free range with those two characters to kind of just do whatever they want. I really enjoyed how they expanded on Isaac's arrow ace identity, and how people still love and accept him, including the guy that wanted to have like a romantic relationship with him in the previous season, but also the feeling alone when all of your friends are like coupled off or like too mentally ill, too busy to have time for you. I really love that because I feel like I've been both sides to that issue, especially when I was younger, but like I definitely very much relate to that particular plotline with Isaac now. As I've been single for so long, yeah, I have also noticed when certain people who are in my friendship group or generally are just my friends get a new partner, have that same issue of like they're so obsessed with each other they don't have time to like hang out with their friends, or when they do hang out with friends together they're just like in each other's shit, not actually interacting with friends, and it just feels pointless. It's like we want to hang out with you, so can you at least like be present? And then also, especially when it comes to Charlie's part in that, where even when Nick is away for the 3 weeks in the summer, Charlie is not available for Isaac at all, particularly because a lot of hanging out with friends involves food, and that's one of his like things he's avoiding and has, you know, eating disorder and OCD triggers related to. But it also just kind of felt like regardless of if those things were involved, it was almost like I don't want to hang out with you because I miss my boyfriend kind of vibes. I really liked the expansion on Isaac's character and more exploration and information about asexuality and aromanticism. My brain always like stutters. I also really enjoyed Darcy's gender exploration. I believe the actor is also non-binary, so it's just again really nice to see in a lot of ways the actors inform the characters a lot of the time. But yeah, like the exploration into gender, the odd things you say here and there, as an offhand comment that other people who are the same gender as you don't really understand or experience the way that Darcy would say, like, God, I hate it when they call everybody ladies, don't you guys? And everyone was like, I don't know, and I've already thought about it, I don't really care. And they were like, I'm not a lady. And that was before they'd even really started experimenting with different pronouns and their outward appearance and things like that. And also the family struggles that Darcy has, the way that they cut off their mum, even when their mum is continuing to pester them, the hesitance to really interact with their nan or gran, I don't know, I can't remember what they called her, but then Tara encouraging Darcy to get in contact with their nan because their nan might be different to their mum, might love them, you know. And it was just really nice to see then, you know, basically being adopted by their nan, who is just as goofy and weird as Darcy's character comes across in previous seasons, and she's fully accepting of Darcy's gender, Darcy's queerness, loves Tara, and it's just a really nice, wholesome, heartwarming, I don't know whether it would really be classified as an end to their story, but like an ending to the arc of family issues, I guess, for now anyway. When it comes to Tao, it was nice to see that by the end of the season, he's kind of discovered his own passion outside of his relationship with Elle for making things. He's kind of actually discovered he enjoys making films. He doesn't just enjoy watching, critiquing films of different genres, but particularly strange films or like niche or indie films. He actually enjoys creating them as well. And that all just came about because his mum found a camera that was his dad's, who died, and started filming basically a documentary of him and his friends to give to Charlie because Charlie was away at inpatient for like 2 or 3 months. And then he makes another one for Elle later on in the season. I also really love the full and true acceptance he has for Nick as part of the friend group, as, you know, the partner to one of his closest friends, to the point of comforting him at the Halloween party when Charlie's been gone for so long and hasn't even been making contact with anybody. He just lets Nick cry on his shoulder at the Halloween party, which just generally is a very sweet action, but also particularly as they are both men, and I mean Tao is a cis straight man. I think this is something I've said in numerous shows, particularly when it comes to reality TV, but like especially because this is a show aimed at a younger audience, I think it's nice to be showing that, you know, and of course like most of these characters are queer, but it's nice to be showing cis men, cis boys having feelings, crying and like sharing and comforting each other. Because I mean, as I'm now 30 officially, like 15 years ago, I don't know if that's how boys I went to school with would have treated each other necessarily. So it's just, yeah, a nice normalization of taking care of your friends, caring about their well-being. When it comes to Tara, seeing her struggling living with Darcy, because she basically adopts Darcy into her home with her mum after the whole stuff with Darcy's mum being an abusive, terrible person comes out. But she is very overwhelmed by constantly being around her partner. Moot. Why my dream life would involve me and my partner having separate homes or at least separate bedrooms. Vibes, get away from me. Too much interaction. Go away. And then how she was a big part of encouraging Darcy to explore their relationship with their nan. She also got all top grades. I don't know whether the 9s are the A's or the A stars, but I understand 9s are very good. 9s are high, okay? I get that much. All 9s in all of her GCSEs, but is still having like panic attacks and is scared about her future and what she wants to do. Towards the end of the season, she's leaning away from doing more academic work and leaning towards doing something more practical, I guess. Practical, it definitely has different meanings in different contexts. So it wouldn't be practical as in great at getting her a job in the future, but practical as in physical, hands-on, getting involved, less written stuff and academic side of things. So she seems to love her ballet dancing, which I did read a book a really long time ago about a black ballet dancer who was queer and had an eating disorder. I can't remember what it was called. Not otherwise specified. Was written by a white lady, so pinch of salt. I enjoyed the book, but I understand there are lots of things I probably can't grasp because I'm a white person reading a book written by a white person about a black girl. Tara in Heartstopper is reminding me a bit of that book, but like a lot of that book obviously had a lot to do with body image and stuff, and obviously this is not necessarily the exact link for Tara, but Tara is quite a curvy and athletic and fit dancer. Like there's a few other people in the cast who are, quite stereotypically more ballet dancer-esque than Tara is. And I just think that it was really nice, and I keep using the word nice, and I know it's not very descriptive, but like to me, the way I'm using nice in this video is sort of like almost in a way like a relief. Like you let go of a breath you've been holding, like every YA book ever. Because in this show, she's allowed to be a ballet dancer. She's allowed to be good at ballet. She's allowed to pursue that. In the real world, that's not necessarily true. Also, her showing her dedication and how much she does love going, the fact that she has to take 3 buses to get to her classes. For one, rural representation, shout out, can't fucking get anywhere here. But also then returning to the friendship between her and Nick, where, Nick has started to learn how to drive and is able to drive now, and he just offers to drive her. And she's like, oh, that's like out of the way, like honestly, no. And he's like, no, seriously, it's fine, I wouldn't offer. And it's way easier for me to just do that than it is for you to get 3 buses. And I'm usually free, so who cares? Just like, the things that people just don't seem to do for each other anymore, which includes literally giving people a lift somewhere, whether it's to make sure they get home safe or whether it's like to make sure that they can continue doing a thing that they love doing and are good at doing. I feel like a lot of those small acts are kind of forgotten about day to day, so I think it was really heartwarming to include that in their friendship and as part of their changing relationship as well, because obviously this is quite a transition season as well for a multitude of reasons that I will get onto. Imogen, gay queen. Imogen having her queer awakening this season. I don't know if her and Sahar are going to get together. I know they've kind of settled on just being besties, but like Sahar is bisexual. Imogen used to make out with Sahar at parties when drunk and whatever, and people, including Sahar, felt like Imogen was leading Sahar on and just doing it for attention or things like that, which is such a, like, can we stop? And I understand Sahar's point of view for that, obviously, but everyone else, shut the fuck up. She did realise she was being unfair and needed to do her own self-reflecting. She couldn't really just use other people she knows are queer to kind of experiment with that. She had to do some of her own internal looking in on herself and her past relationships and obsessions with people. She did share a room with Nick whilst they were on their like lads on UK uni tour drive thing, where she admitted to him that she doesn't think she actually ever fancied any boys ever, including him, even though she made such a big deal about it, and that's like her whole personality in season 1, which I think is just also generally very common. I think it's very common among asexual people, I think it's very common among gay people, it's very common among bi people to sort of outwardly obsess about whatever gender that makes it look like you are straight. Even if you have no interest full stop in sexual romantic relationships, or if you are completely gay, or if you're just trying to deter from the fact that you're not 100 straight. I don't think we have an official word for her yet. Anything could be surprising, honestly. I don't think she's bisexual, even though I was rooting for her to be bi. I was like, yeah, give me my bi bitch. But I'm leaning towards asexual or lesbian or both. I think that's another one of those, you know, really good side stories for Heartstopper, that they like to incorporate lots of different plot lines to encompass as many different experiences as possible, at least as like an introductory sort of thing. And I think that could be a really good introduction to the fact of, yeah, not everybody knows that they are gay immediately, or like always knew that. And a lot of people do perform comp het. And just because, like, if it does turn out she is a lesbian, just because she's a lesbian doesn't mean, like, hello? Just because she has, like, dated men and been outwardly obsessed with boys does not mean that she isn't a lesbian. It means that there was a societal pressure on her to conform to other people's standards, even if she didn't feel like she fit. And now she has this very open, accepting, loving, openly queer group of friends who all span different gender and queer spectrums. Now she has the safety and space to actually consider it. And also to not be treated like shit anymore, because fuck Ben.
I also think there's something really funny about Imogen wanting to be Barbie for Halloween and Nick to be her Ken. Because as well, in a lot of ways, actually, Imogen and Nick are very similar to Barbie and Ken of the film. Obviously, not the weird, sexist, patriarchal Ken part, but like the relationship they actually have in a lot of ways. I think there are lots of similarities and comparisons between Imogen and the Barbie film from 2023, particularly with how Imogen behaves and dresses. They are very similar stylistically. The way Imogen was in Paris is very similar to Barbie in the human world. And I think it's also then funny how she was basically Barbie by herself, and a lot of the fan theories around Barbie from Barbie 2023 include things like Barbie being asexual, aromantic, a lesbian, etc. because not just because she had no interest in Ken specifically, but she didn't seem to have any interest in anyone or relationships at all. That Imogen is then almost the performative, like, side of, like, Ken in a lot of ways. The, oh my god, I love you so much. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought there was, like, some similarities that if I really wanted to delve into it, I'm sure I could find something that made sense. But I just wanted to mention it because I love Imogen.
There were a few of the main group's plotlines I wasn't really that bothered about, at least for a while. One of them was Elle's. I think, I don't know, the idea that, is it Lambert, the place that she's now going to for sixth form? I think the fact that seemingly everybody at Lambert is trans. Where is this trans only art college? Like, even the teacher's trans. Like, hello? For the most part, there's not a lot happening with her until, you know, she's getting followers, and yes, it's the whole relationship with her and Tao. There's not a lot really going on with her separately until she's invited to an interview on the radio, supposedly about her artwork, which is where she's been getting a lot of followers on Instagram. I did like her advice to Nick towards the end about having to do what's right for you, regardless of like what your partner might think or how they might feel. You've got to do what's right for you. Otherwise you're just going to regret things, because he loved Leeds so much. So I'm glad that she said that, because again, I think that's something a lot of teenagers need to hear. I think a lot of people make plans to go to the same universities together because they believe they're in love. They might be compromising with where they're going, and then things don't work out, or they have a really bad time and don't actually do what they want to do, and you know, it just carries on. Then obviously when it comes to that radio interview, she was misled. Like, she's still underage. She is not 18 yet, because I believe she's the first year of sixth form, right? And that's when you turn 17. So she was misled, her parents were misled. I think also her art teacher, was the one who told her that, like, who was reached out to. All of them have been misled about, like, the intention of the interview. And I mean, honestly, the red flag, the alarms were going off when, like, the person said nobody else can go in there with her, it has to be just her. And I would have been like, bitch, she is underage. Like, it is a legal requirement to allow either a parent, guardian, or some other kind of chaperone in there with her, to do those sorts of things with her, for literally the reason that what happened, basically. The interviewer then just immediately started asking about trans issues, the trans debate. Apparently they had a turf on the week before. Like, great. What do I fucking care? I thought I was talking about my art, you bitch. And like, of course everyone's fucking raging. I was raging. And I was also raging at the fact that nobody really got to rage about this. Like, this never really got concluded. And I really wish there was a better conclusion to that event. Like, they just left it, and like, her mum was having a go at the manager for it. But that's kind of all that happened. Yeah, they were asking her, I think the two main things that they brought up was the whole thing about schools and how, like, the policy, that's not legal, by the way, it's not a legal requirement, but schools have to supposedly tell trans children's parents if trans children want to go by different names or pronouns at school. Not a legal requirement, but it has become a policy, I think, generally in the UK. And then the one before that was, again, I think something to do with bathrooms and changing rooms. The reason why that pisses me off so much is that obvious things. She was underage, it's irrelevant, nobody asked her, nobody prepared her. A lot of journalism is like this these days in the UK. Very much don't give a shit. They don't seem to care about any ethics at all when it comes to this sort of shit. That's my opinion! And the way she sort of went, oh, I didn't mean to offend you. And it's like, the fuck? Yeah, I'm glad that she said in the interview that trans people aren't a debate with, like, we're human beings, blah, blah, blah. But like, I do kind of wish somebody kicked off. Like, I thought for a second Hal might have gone, like, busted in there or something and started talking into the radio instead and having a go, or like even one of her parents, but no. Full disclosure, if that was my child, I'd have fucking busted in there. I'd have fucking busted in there, and I would have been swearing on the radio. I absolutely would have been cussing the bitch out and talking on live radio about how unethical that was and probably very illegal that was. But yeah, nothing happened. And I really kind of wish something did, or at least there was more discussion about what actual things can be done about that. Whereas it was more about just internal stuff and impact, which, yeah, important. I want I want that to be explored, but I also want more media to also give marginalised people ideas of what they can do, which I feel like is what is lacking in a lot of, like, really important storylines for Heartstopper. There was a huge focus this season on mental health and eating disorders in particular because of Charlie, and there was a lot in this season that focused on, like, what you can do for your friend or your brother or like a loved one as a teenager if you have a friend who's really suffering with their mental health or specifically an eating disorder. But that I don't feel like there was a lot of anything else. Like, what can you do in that situation that happened to Elle? Well, making a complaint, going to other media are two options. And it was never approached. Elle was also like, I'm not happy with my, like, painting anymore. And it's like, okay, Is she going to start making political art? Didn't even get there. Didn't even get there. We saw a whole year of their schooling, and we didn't even get there. We didn't get her starting to be more political. She now has a platform. Is she doing something with it? Didn't see anything like that. But then also, what do you do if you don't have a platform that happens, or something similar happens to you? And also, in a lot of ways, I kind of wish that her teacher had gone with her as well, because the second question was about trans kids in school. Maybe you should be talking to fucking teachers about that, actually, especially a trans teacher. That would have given so much more to that plotline. Whereas, yeah, I just feel like they could have done so much with it and it just kind of got dropped. Besides that, like, there was also some, again, it was very lightly touched upon, some conversation obviously around sex and being trans and dysphoria, but not a lot. Not a lot. I am glad it was at least acknowledged, you know. And another plotline I didn't really care much for was Charlie's. I am glad that they didn't include some of the stuff that was in book, you know, volume 3, because I found it just a bit stereotypical and basically directly stole from Skins. But in the graphic novel, Charlie was organising food in the cupboards in the kitchen, and that is basically literally a direct reference from Cassie in I think literally the first episode of Skins, maybe the second, I think first though, where she just starts organising the cupboards in the kitchen of this random person's party, because she is anorexic. I'm glad they removed that, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've heard much about that ever actually being a thing people do. A big thing about particularly eating disorders, you're trying to hide you're trying to hide what you're doing. And I feel like I don't have OCD. Some of my friends have OCD, so from my base level understanding is that it's a similar vibe as well, because I think a lot of people with OCD are aware that what they're doing is odd and weird, which is why you hide it, because like what Charlie talks about in the show is that, you know, he knows that what he's doing sounds ridiculous, but he feels like if he doesn't do these things, he's going to die or something really bad's going to happen. And it's like, well, what, you know, if you're still really in the thick of like a mental illness, which is something else I did like about Heartstopper season 3, is they called it mental illness several times, which is something that even the NHS will not do. My STEPS course did not like anyone calling things mental illness. It's like, I am mentally ill though. Sorry, I lost track. You know, being in the thick of mental illness, if you feel like something really bad's going to happen if you stop doing what you're doing, because other people are going to stop you if they know, then you're not going to let people know. You're going to be hiding it, which is partly why I think they combined the anorexia with OCD, that it kind of adds that additional layer of like a complexity, that it's not just food, it's not just about body image, it's not just about weight or whatever, it's about control. It's about controlling things. And when you have no control, particularly like, you know, most people with eating disorders are usually children, you know, teenagers, a mixture, because they have such little autonomy, for one, that one of the only things they can control is what's in their body. But also, most people with anorexia die. Most people with anorexia are children, because they don't have control, and you are most likely to die from it. I have lost my train of thought, so I'm just going to have to move on. Like, I don't have any idea what I was saying now. One of the reasons why I struggled with this plotline is because his family had money for inpatient treatment and it was lovely and great, and then he was better. Obviously, like, he wasn't cured, which was a good thing, because that's unrealistic. And I did like the fact that, you know, when they did go for help, he wasn't going to get support from the NHS for months and months and months, if not years, really, realistically. As he got sicker after that, he got angrier. And that's something that I think is not often acknowledged or approached, or is kind of like demonized, made shameful about lots of mental illnesses, and even physical illnesses, is the anger / irritability response. I'm a very irritable person. But it gets worse when my mental health or my physical health is worse, because you lose tolerance to things. So I liked that was included, particularly as he's usually such a meek, well-mannered, quiet person. But yeah, the fact that they magically at least had money to send him to inpatient for like 2 or 3 months, and he continued to be able to see a therapist every week after being discharged. I was going to say released. And how he had just like this wonderful magic time, and even though the actual activities were hard, the place was nice, the people were nice, the staff were nice, which is very uncommon, which they did acknowledge. But that's part of why, like, I just couldn't really vibe with that particular plotline. I did also enjoy, though, about his plot that when he did return, he started playing drums again and actually started to do things out in the world with other people who weren't just Nick. So he was part of Sahar's band. He was playing the drums for a gig at the end of the school year or something or other. And because I've not read the next few volumes of Heartstopper, I don't really know the gist of what's coming. But I hope that that's something that does continue, that he has like a hobby that he actually does with other people, and it leads to him making decisions about what he wants to then actually do next with his life. Because honestly, a lot of the characters, you don't really know what it is they want to do. We've heard a little bit this season from the ones who are now in college and are looking at university, but even then it's almost a little bit out of the blue for a lot of them, because I mean, Nick wants to go into psychology. Is it because he has a mentally ill boyfriend and his auntie is a psychologist, or whatever it is? He only got a 6 on his GCSEs, whereas he got 9s in like a bunch of other things. Like, Nick is my son. Nick is my baby. So I love him a lot. I loved him in the graphic novels. I love him in the show. I will defend both the actual character and the actor with my life. Nick, the character, he learned what a lot of teenagers need to learn this season, which is you can't save people. Like, you can't save your friends when you're a kid. You can't do it alone. You need support, and you need to help them to tell somebody who can actually do something to help them, and just kind of trust that they will be able to do something about it and be there for the person if they need, you know, just someone to talk to or someone to help them, you know, maybe navigate the situation that's happening. And like, that's also a similar problem you have as an adult anyway, but is you first start really learning it as a mid to late teenager, that like, you can't force people to get better. You can't force people to ask for help, but you can support them to getting to that point. But also, being codependent is not healthy. Letting people walk all over you, be nasty to you, is not healthy. You still need to do what's best for you in the long run, because if you don't look after yourself and your needs, you can't help them either. You can't look after them either. That was also something that Tara had to learn as well, obviously. Like, she helped Darcy initially, but in the long run she couldn't keep helping Darcy in that same way, so had to find a way to help Darcy to help
themselves,
basically. Because I mean, imagine like Darcy is taking a year off between college and university. What would have happened if Darcy hadn't moved out of Tara's house, and Tara went off to university somewhere? But, you know, Nick had to work out how to pick the university he actually wanted to go to, versus what he felt safe picking based on his own fears, as well as like what he feared about Charlie as well. I did really like Tori's side development. We saw a lot more of her, I feel like, this season. We saw a lot more of her, like, actual emotions this season, mainly around Charlie and his well-being. I believe I read a while back that the happenings of this season / the volume of the comic that this is based on overlaps with Tori's story of Solitaire, the first novel that Alice Oseman wrote. But I can't remember exactly, and I read that book quite a while ago now that I don't remember the exacts, but it was quite nice seeing Michael, and it was quite nice seeing a black Michael as well, because I mean the original Michael was not black. I mean, he could have been, you know, based on the descriptions in Solitaire, he could have been, but I believe he was drawn white in the comics, maybe. I don't know. I did see an illustration done by Alice Oseman. So we see Tori letting down some of her defences, some of her walls. We see her starting to trust that other people will be there, that, you know, she's not the only one in charge, the only one who is actually looking out for Charlie. We see her put herself in difficult situations, in sometimes, you know, harm's way with her, mainly the mum, but like parents in general when it comes to Charlie and how they treated him, especially after he told them that he was actually romantically involved with Nick, and things got very strict after that. She also accepted Nick is good for Charlie. He's not the typical rugby lad that everyone thinks of, and that Nick does want the best for Charlie. And then also, yeah, like I said, having that sort of relationship, however it's going to develop, being sort of shown here and there between her and Michael through the season. When it comes to the teachers, I love seeing the continued growth of Mr. I can't remember how to pronounce this name because they don't really say it that often. Ajayi. Yeah, I loved seeing Mr. Ajayi and where's my notes? And Mr. Farouk, their relationship continuing post Paris. I love them together so much. You know, I feel like we do see quite a lot of black queer characters on TV and in films, more often than we see queer South Asians or queer Arabs. I think Mr. Farouk's character and also Sahar's character, also the PE teacher is South Asian, I believe, who is also a lesbian. So like those three, I guess, generally are really great additions to the continued varied exploration of sexuality across experiences. I also just love how Miss or Mrs. Singh, who is the PE teacher, is almost kind of like a mentor in a way to Mr. Ajayi and Mr. Farouk. Like we catch them here and there having like cute little flirty interactions, and they kiss goodbye in the car. They go to work together. Like people are gonna notice, babe, and she's like, there's gonna be rumors that you're engaged by lunchtime if you're not more careful. In a comedic way, she's warning them that they should probably be more discreet with how they are together in and around where they work. And I just think that was really humorous and just makes for a nice like, I don't know, parallel of like adult experiences versus the teen experiences and how they can be extremely similar but also extremely different. I really hated mainly Charlie's mum in the like books and comics. In the TV show, Charlie's mum and dad were both shitty. I really hated them, but I'm glad that they've had more of an evolution this season. I think his dad used to just kind of go along with whatever the mum would say, kind of didn't really have a backbone, whereas he's kind of learned to like not continually go along with what she's expects or what she wants, and she has then reflected on, you know, why is she like this? Why are both of her children going against the things she says and telling her what she expects is harsh or too much, etc. And realizing that she is emulating the parent that she actually didn't want to be anything like and couldn't wait to get away from herself. And also the fact that she like continued to force her awful parents onto the rest of her family every Christmas. It's like, even though she doesn't like either of her parents, doesn't like when they're around, doesn't like what they say to her or her kids, she still invites them around every year for Christmas. Like, let's move on. I think the overarching themes of this season is generally like adulthood and transition. All of the things that come with going from child to adult. Half of them, like I said, are looking at universities, deciding what they want to study, what they want to go on to do for careers. Almost everybody is having sex now, or leading up to having sex, and a lot of the parties, like the social parties that aren't birthdays going on, usually are involving more alcohol, less bowling alleys and cinemas. We did get a zoo visit this season though for Nick's birthday, but like I said, the more social parties were a lot more like, the characters were participating in the drinking a lot more. I know they had a little bit of that with the Paris trip, but a lot of the other parties, they didn't really seem to engage in the actual drinking aspect of those parties, whereas now they do. I mean, I've been filming for quite a long time. I do have a lot of thoughts around this point, so I'm just going to make a short point, and if you would like to hear me talk about this a bit more in another video, let me know, because I have made a decent amount of notes so far already. But like, I always find that there seems to be the same discourse that kind of comes up every time there's a new season of Heartstopper around sexuality, and not in the way of like queerness, but in the way of like how sex and relationships are depicted on the screen. Obviously, for one, forcing cast members out the closet. Literally the opposite of what the point of the whole first season was about. The arguments that are very like Puritan when it comes to like, you should be abstaining from sex rather than engaging with it safely. The argument about whether Heartstopper is better because it's sanitized versus, you know, other media that's less sanitized. Like, I guess maybe like Pretty Little Liars is a less sanitized version, but like that had its own issues that I like. So many adult men with these children, I can't. But they were a little bit more salacious, you know, with like lingerie, and you would see a bit more of the sex scenes and stuff like that, whereas you don't really see anything in Heartstopper. And also the cringe. They're teenagers. I think teenagers just are cringy. I mean, I think we're all just kind of cringy. I think you're just weak. I have a lot of notes on that, and I mean, I probably could expand more on even my notes, but to be fair, I've got a lot of notes here. Wow, I wrote a lot. Girly, what? It's something that I find interesting because as an asexual, people have an assumption about me, which I've discussed in, I think it was the Cash video. There are a lot of assumptions around what asexuality means, and a lot of the time this puritanism and stuff is, or like a sex negative view of things is attributed to asexuals in the community of queers, but that's absolutely not the vibe. The vibe really mostly comes from Western Christianity. Yeah, I just have a lot of interesting, I have interesting thoughts. That's not quite how I meant that, but I have a lot of thoughts I find interesting about this topic as an asexual person. Bother me. I wouldn't mind going into it a bit more. I think, to be honest, I'm sure what I have written has been said by other people, has been made into video essays, I'm sure. But if you guys in particular would want to hear what I think personally about that, let me know in the comment section, and I may record it and discuss it further. But all in all, I do love Heartstopper, the show, for what it is. I do. I do have problems with it, obviously. I think one of the big problems as well, related to my previous point, is that, you know, a lot of queer shows are cancelled, and the only thing that we have left is a very sanitised version of queerness for teenagers mostly, with a sprinkling of some adults like the teachers and some parents and stuff. And the sanitisation obviously is because it is for children. I think the show is age appropriate, and I don't think that's a bad thing for this show. I think what the bad thing is that we don't have long-standing variety of exploration of different experiences. We get a very shallow look at a selection of different experiences through Heartstopper, and its cast of characters. And whilst I think that's good for a children's TV show, it's not great for everybody in the world, like older queers who are adults, queers who are at uni or been to uni, or going into work all over the world. You know, like there's different queer experiences that we're not really able to see through this show. And I do think that is a problem, and that is something that I would go more into in the previous topic video.
Also, to clarify, it's not the show's fault that all these other shows are being cancelled, and we're not seeing both realistic and fantasy or sci-fi, etc., queer stories elsewhere. Just wanted to make sure that it was very clear that you understand I am not blaming Heartstopper itself for the lack of other shows or lack of in-depth representation. They cannot and should not be catering to everybody.
So whilst I think, you know, the show is shallow in a lot of ways, that's not the show's fault. I think the show is doing a good job of being age appropriate and introducing young people to different experiences and different terminology for self-reflection, for initiating their own learning, basically, and to generally normalise all of these different things just existing at the same time. I like that they, you know, do cover consent, they do cover transness and dysphoria, the intersections of different marginalised identities in one person's experience, as well as like the things that everyone else can relate to, which is like, you know, friend group problems, how to tackle it, dealing with your parents or family, you know, all those different things. Heartstopper is also a very beautiful show, very pleasing, very aesthetic to look at. The cast are close to character age, or at least they were when it first started filming, less so now, and the cast are more normal, as in like they reflect more of a varied selection that you would just see, a very selection of people, sorry, that you would just see out in the world. Different body types, different races, different genders, different styles. I like how they incorporate phones and social media. However, I think they really could have leaned into it more like Scum did, where they actually have the social media public for us to look at, because I think it would also make for good marketing for the then upcoming season, is when you start seeing it updating with photos and stuff that you would just see as they are looking through each other's Instagram profiles, so it would get some more hype, being like, oh my god, look at these new photos of them in character and things like that, because I believe the accounts are real and exist, but they're all private and they seem to be like, I don't know, deleting things or changing things. I've seen a little bit on Reddit about that, but, and I also like the fun way that they basically give book recommendations, mainly through Isaac's just casual reading, in like every scene he's in of different queer books. It's a very good way of like subtly going, hey, you want to read about gays? Also, one of the books Isaac has this season is one I've been carrying around for ages and just haven't fucking started, and I really should. It's not very big. I really should just fucking read it, but I can't. My brain won't let me. Anyway, my main frustration is kind of what I said about what happened with Elle, is I just feel like there is a lacking of anger from these teenagers. I think Isaac had a little bit of like frustration, but he didn't really get much anger. Like I said, Charlie got a bit irritable and was lashing out at people, but didn't really get like angry angry. He got a bit angry with his mum, like maybe once. Yeah, I just feel like there's a lacking of anger. I was a sad mopey teenager, but I also became a very angry teenager. I want to see more of the like rebellious angry teenager. Darcy was literally living with their abusive mother and was I believe they were kicked out, right? I can't fully remember that because I didn't rewatch the second season before watching the third. But like that would make you angry, right? Even though you're now living with your nan who loves you and accepts you, wouldn't you still be angry? Yeah, I just feel like there's a lacking of angry action. Like there's people talking about being angry, but not really a lot of showing it. I want to see these teenagers doing impulsive things because they're angry and don't know how to deal with that. I almost feel like some of these characters or like some of these situations the characters are in are kind of still being handled as if they were adults. Like they've skipped this phase of being a teenager and not really knowing how to deal with shit, and they just go and deal with shit and it's fine. And like whilst in some ways I enjoy it because it's like, hey look, if this could have been modelled to me as a teenager, maybe I would have like, you know, approached different conversations in these ways. But also you want to like, I don't know, you want to relate to those characters when you're a teenager. You want to see somebody else having that same like struggle as you. So I just think the characters need to be angrier, to be honest.
I feel like in a lot of ways Tao is the only one who has been allowed to be angry in Heartstopper, and that was more in season 1 and maybe a bit of season 2, because there were a lot of changes that he didn't understand, and that was before, you know, all of his friends were fucking gay. Before anyone knew that they were gay or out. But like, even he has chilled out to the point of like, I don't know, I just like I really love his character as well. He is so vivacious, if that's the right word. Like he has so much energy, and I really enjoy his anger and his criticism. And I don't know, I feel like it was lacking in this season because he was so focused on um the perfect summer with Elle. But yeah, do you know what I mean? I just feel like we are missing a lot of that stuff now in these seasons when a lot of people have a lot of like good reasons to be angry and they just aren't. They just aren't.
And yeah, I want to see more fighting against unfairness, and I want to see more fighting and organising together to go against something that was an injustice of some kind.
Like in Heartbreak High when they did the sit-in for wrongfully firing Jojo.
You know, especially like teenagers are doing that in the real world. Teenagers were occupying a particular building, can't remember the specifics. Trans teenagers were occupying that building because of the puberty blockers, because of Wes Streeting, or whatever the fuck his name is, goofball of the century, can't read, decided to just do whatever the cast review said to do and was like, sure, this is fine. And there's literally no scientific backing for it. You know, wouldn't mind a little sprinkling of the revolution in the show, but I mean, I guess is it the sanitized show in the political way too? Very possible. I think it may not ever do something quite as explicit as that.
Including disability, it's very lacking in disability.
Because it's meant to be the one queer show that is popular all round right now, but also one of many queer shows which is supposed to be easy to ingest if you're not queer. It's not necessarily made for queer people. I mean, it is, but it isn't, you know. So yeah, I don't know if that will ever happen. However, I do need a teacher spin-off series because I just need to know more about the teachers that we do know about and introduce more of them, and like how they all tackle being queer teachers in the UK. And like I said, especially with the policies that affect schools and how they treat queer and trans kids. I want to see more about that. Also, more queer teachers anyway, generally in the season. I'm available to be hired. I'm wearing my best queer non-binary teacher shirt today, who would fit really well into the Heartstopper universe. So whether you're making a spin-off or just need some more teachers in the background with maybe a few lines for next season, I am available. So yeah, that's my thoughts for this season. Like I said, if you want to know more about the sanitization aspect of this show, let me know in the comments. Definitely can expand on that, especially seeing as I just said the whole thing about politics and sanitization there. I could definitely add that in too. Yeah, that's my video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, watch my videos. We're working on the watch time so I can get to partner, please and thank you. We got to like 2,000 watch hours for the year. That's the one. So we need to double that for 4,000 watch hours. So yeah, watch my other videos. That was my shoulder. But that's all I have for this week. I will see you next week. Bye.